So the title of this webinar is Automate Your Material Flow. And this is actually a refresher or a modified version of a webinar that I did at least 6 months ago. But in the world of automation, in the world of AI, definitely things are changing quickly. And so I looked at it and I realized, boy, a lot has actually happened since we did this the last time. So I would say maybe 50% of this presentation is going to be new content. So if you went to the last one, you'll see some familiar content, but a lot of new stuff as well. So the idea here is to review the opportunities that we all have if we're working for a company and we have materials to not only do it correctly, organize our material flow, material management system correctly based on lean principles. And if you're a mixed model manufacturer, lots of different products, but families of products that are similar but different, that's additionally challenging. And so we have the issue of doing that correctly, whether you're automating it or not. But in today's world, we have this opportunity to really be a lot more efficient, a lot more effective, and at a lot lower cost than in the past by automating some of these key functions. So that's what we're going to cover here in this webinar. So I think it'll be a great one. Let me introduce myself. My name is Richard Rahn. I'm a principal at the Leonardo Group Americas. I like to think of ourselves as kind of a boutique lean manufacturing consulting company in the sense that we specialize in what we call mixed model manufacturing. So companies that have discrete products that are similar but different, and they're built on the same production lines. And so if you don't do that properly, then you're going to run into issues with productivity, with inventory, a lot of issues. So that's what we work with our clients on, how to do that properly. And there are two wings to the bird of this mixed model manufacturing. The first one is what we call line design. So that's workflow design. And if you're a lean aficionado, then you'll be familiar with terms like takt time and line balancing and standard work, those kind of things. That's line design. And then the other side, which is really the focus of this webinar, is the material delivery. So you can have the best designed line in the world, but if you don't have the parts, then you're kind of stopped, right? So you need both for the bird to fly. And we'll talk about this material flow in this webinar. We've been extremely fortunate, blessed, I could even say, to have partnered with Toyota Material Handling over the last 15 years or so. And they've been generous enough to invite us into their factory. And so while we don't teach the Toyota production system, or at least we don't label ourselves, brand ourselves in that way, I think they have enough confidence in what we're teaching that they've been willing to have us come in and teach our public classes at the Toyota factory in Columbus, Indiana. So I'll share a little bit. We do have 2 more classes coming up this year, so I'll share a little bit of information about that with you. Reminder, near the end of the presentation, I'll open a link so you can download a PDF of this presentation. Because some of the slides are kind of like text heavy, I tried to eliminate some of the ones that were just impossible to read. Type was very small, the font size was very small, but there's some slides that are content heavy, and so you might find having a PDF useful, and I'll make that available to you. Okay, so here's the agenda. Here's what we're going to talk about in terms of automating this material flow system. First one is what I call building the brain, and this is something we've done here at Leonardo Group. And the idea is to use a large language model like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or, there are lots of them available, and train that large language model in your own specific details, your own specific processes, your own specific standard operating procedures, et cetera, and philosophies, so that when you are working with this LLM, it already has a lot of background information about what you do and what you want to do and how you do it. And so we've created that at Leonardo Group. I call it Leonardo's Brain. And so we've shared with this LLM our books, our YouTube videos, our courses, our emails and communications, our white papers, anything that we could find, we've trained that. And that's very helpful when we're trying to do things like automation because it knows kind of already what we want or what we need. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We won't get too heavy, get too technical, but it's really not that difficult to do. Second one is mapping the process. Now, one of the things that I've seen highly, highly, highly recommended from people that are working with AI and large language models is don't jump into just brainstorming, free form, but when you're communicating with an LLM, the more specific you can be, the more detailed you can be, the better results you're going to get. And so one of the steps here in this automation process is to really understand, think through, and document how you want these various aspects of your material flow system to work. Think it through, discuss it as a team, do research, you can even get the large language model or AI involved in that discussion, but you don't want to just jump into trying to create things without really understanding what it is you want to get out of it and how it should work. So I've come across many people that spend all day working with large language models that say, boy, that really makes a difference. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. Fortunately, we have some maps for you that you can actually use, so you're not starting from a blank sheet of paper. And then we want to document the flow. So we want to share with the AI what it is you have in mind and come up with a future state. You'll notice I didn't say much here about current state. Like normally if we're doing value stream mapping, we document the current state and then we brainstorm improvements and then we design the future state. Right here, we're going to the future state because we're really treating this as a kaikaku kind of transformation, a big change, not necessarily just small incremental improvements. So we're going to decide what we want, and then we're going to share and analyze this with the AI to really come up with a final blueprint for the automation that we may want to do, or the improvements we want to do generally. Now, the next one, brainstorm bursts, means you can actually, once you have the blueprint of what we want to do, then you can actually have AI drill down and really come up with all kinds of ideas. Once you give it a starting point, then it's sometimes amazing how detailed it can get in terms of further, deeper opportunities for improving that particular business process. So you want to spend some time in. It would not at all be surprising to end up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of automation / improvement / Kaizen projects that you can work on, or changes that you can work on. And so part of this brainstorm burst is you're going to have to rationalize those and prioritize those, because you can't do everything at once. So part of the process here is going to be, okay, we've got this big mountain of things we could be working on, but what are the most important ones? Which ones give us the biggest payback, the biggest bang for the buck? Okay, and then finally, and this is something that's really taking off, I mean, like amazingly taking off fast, is pretty much this year, 2025, is two things. One is what's called vibe coding, or sometimes it's called no coding, developing applications, code, in other words, software, without having to be a programmer. In fact, I saw something the other day where even if you are a programmer, because AI right now is so effective at generating code, us as human beings can't keep up with it. So even if you had the goal of, yeah, well, I'll have AI develop some code, but then I'm going to review it, you wouldn't be able to keep up. You would lose the productivity benefit, because the time it would take you to review that code that's generated would take days compared to the minutes it took to create them. So we'll explore this. I'm working personally with vibe coding right now, so I'll share with you kind of my impressions of it. The other one is this idea that I'm sure if you've been poking around the world of AI, you've heard of already, which is called agents. So an agent is not exactly software. An agent is instructions that you're given to AI for them to do something in your behalf. So it's kind of like an app, but it's not really based on code per se. It's based on language or English instructions to AI to, make some change or affect some action in the world. Now, up to now, these agents are mostly digital kinds of things. So basically anything you can do in a computer, an AI agent could probably help with. Now, in the future, not too distant future, that's going to be actually extended to the physical world, where an agent is not just doing things digitally, but it's doing things physically vis-a-vis robots, humanoid robots, etc. But that's not really here yet, as far as I know. I did hear the other day that Amazon has hit this milestone of 1 million robots within their factories, within their warehouses. But I think these are more like Roombas, robots that are moving things around. So I'm not sure that they're at the humanoid robot level, but it's coming. And there are literally dozens or hundreds of companies working on this. So that's our basic agenda. So let's get into it. Let's go into it one by one. So here's the outline, the high level view of what we're talking about when we say mixed model material flow. What's included in that? What are we talking about? Well, over on the far left, I have this little box called legacy systems. And what I'm trying to imply here is that if you're a medium to large size company, you already have some kind of material management system. It might be SAP, it might be Oracle, it might be there are dozens of other options, but you probably have something already in place, right? It's an MRP system, it's an ERP system that does some material planning for you. It's where you store your part numbers, you have bills of material, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're not getting rid of that, because throughout this whole discussion, there needs to be a single point of truth. Where is the truth lying? And I'm not suggesting here that the truth is going to be lying in PFEP or plan for every part. The truth needs to be, I believe, in your legacy systems. So if you're an SAP user, that's where the quote unquote real information is. The issue here is that within our legacy system, it's not that, I could be wrong, but it's not that easy to use. It's not that flexible. It's not even designed to be flexible. It's kind of designed to be bulletproof. So some of the things we want to do from a mixed model manufacturing point of view may not even be possible in our legacy system, or it's difficult. So to overcome that, we've created this concept called PFEP, or plan for every part. So what we mean by that is we're going to extract from our legacy systems some key information into a format that is flexible and easy to use. But we're not saying that we're adding new part numbers to PFEP. We're going to be relying on a bridge to legacy systems that keeps our PFEP up to date with that information. And then from there, we can do these various things we want to do and add the functionality that maybe our legacy system doesn't have. Okay, with me on that? So Kent, just have a comment here I saw in the chat. I thought Kaikaku was a large leap. Yeah, that's what I meant. So whether you call it a future state or a large leap, I'm kind of using those independently. I'm not going to split hairs on that, but it's not an incremental improvement is what we're saying. Okay, so PFEP in the past usually it's been an Excel spreadsheet, like a massive Excel spreadsheet. But in Excel, you can filter, you can hide rows, you can add columns. You have a lot of flexibility, which is great, that you don't have in your legacy ERP or MRP system. So, but Excel has some problems. One of them is it's not really easily shareable. Another aspect is it's not particularly secure. It's a file. And it's not that easy to have more than one person working on it. So there's some challenges with Excel, but up to now, that's basically what we had. What would be preferable would be maybe a relational database system, extract from the legacy systems that gives us the same kind of freedom or functionality of Excel, but maintains that data in a little more structured format. But that's a discussion we could have at some other time. So within drawing on that PFEP data, the main elements of a material management system from a mixed model perspective would include things like Kanban management. In many companies, Kanban still is the method of choice to get parts from the warehouse, supermarket to the points of use as a Kanban system. At Toyota Material Handling, for example, I would estimate, in fact, that, well, they've told me that probably 50 to 60% of the individual part numbers are delivered to the lines via Kanban. So that's another one. The second biggest way of delivering materials in a mixed model environment is kitting, meaning sets of parts as opposed to individual parts. There's a factory you may have heard of, a Toyota factory in Georgetown, Kentucky. They make the Camrys. And they've been going, for several years, they've been going to almost 100% kitting strategy at the final, point of use. And the reason for that is it reduces radically the amount of material you need to store on the line. It can reduce errors, and it makes the work of the operators that are actually doing the work more efficient because they don't have to look for parts or retrieve material. It's delivered to them directly in a tray or in other formats. So you might say to yourself, yeah, but someone has to do the kitting, so that's an additional cost. Well, that is true, but when you add it all together, what Toyota found, at least in Georgetown, was that even adding in the extra effort to create these kits, they were getting an overall productivity gain of 5%. Now, again, 5% may not sound like a lot, but at Toyota, that is a lot because that line was already super lean before they started doing any of this kitting stuff. So kitting management can be an important part of our strategy. Delivery route optimization. So usually in this kind of environment, discrete products, mixed model environment, the actual vehicle or delivery method is a tugger. So the tugger has to go out, collect parts from usually what we call a supermarket, and then deliver those parts to the factory floor on a certain cycle. So the strategy here is streetcar philosophy as opposed to a taxi cab philosophy. So the streetcar just goes on a schedule, has regular stopping points, right? And it does that at a certain cycle. Now that cycle can be user defined, but I can tell you that at Toyota Material Handling, this is not a secret, their cycle is about 35 or 36 minutes. So every 35 or 36 minutes, a tugger will come by, pick up empties, drop off whatever full containers are required, then go to the next stop, etc. So it's like having a streetcar or a city bus that comes by every 35 or 36 minutes. Container management. So this isn't something you do every day, but when you're planning for your materials, you want to have a set of standard containers and you want to optimize those container sizes. And if you can do that efficiently, then that's a big plus. If you have, for example, let's say you have a new product and you have 100 new part numbers. If you don't have some tools or some automation to do that, someone like an industrial engineer or manufacturing engineer is going to have to analyze each of those 100 parts and try to determine the correct container size, et cetera. It can be done manually, but also there are ways of automating that. So pretty much you can get a accurate recommended container size very quickly out of the system. Now, not every part can be treated in that way. I know at John Deere, they had some container management tools, but what they said was, to be honest, only about 85 to 90% of our parts really fit that model because the other 10% had something weird about them, right? Weird size, shape, weight, who knows what. They were the exceptions, and they had to be handled, by people. All right, supply pull systems. So what I like to say here is there's work that we need to do inside the walls of our factory regarding material flow system. And then there are some things that happen outside with outside suppliers. And basically you have two levels of attack. One is, do you have suppliers within, say, a 1-day delivery range? And those would be candidates for a milk run kind of relationship. And then you have suppliers maybe that are farther away. It could be farther away within the same country, or it could be farther away overseas, right, in another country. And so there are ways of dealing with either of those. But until you start getting suppliers on a pull system, I can just tell you it's going to be difficult to really have a major impact on inventory turnover. Because even if you're managing materials like a genius, inside the walls of your factory. If you're bringing materials in from overseas or from outside suppliers in large quantities, that material maybe is not on the factory floor anymore, but it's still going to be in your warehouse. So the only way you can actually have a major impact on inventory turnover is more frequent deliveries from outside suppliers in smaller quantities. That's it. And there are ways of doing that without driving up the cost of transportation and trucking, et cetera, which is something you're probably thinking of as well. And then overall, we want to have a material flow dashboard. So a way of looking at our system on a single screen or a single page where we're tracking some important measurements, and we're able to take action, just like driving your car, right? You got a speedometer, you got a gas gauge. It's in front of us, and we want to see that. And that would be an important automation aspect that we'd want to have. Okay, so all those things I just covered, I want to take time for a short commercial because if you want to learn about all those things in more detail, our next material management workshop is coming up at Toyota in Columbus, Indiana on August 12th to the 14th. And you can just go online and find out more about it. I'll have Michael put the link to that information page about this up in the chat. You can do that, Michael. And you can read it, see what's involved. But it's basically 3 full days inside Toyota. Toyota leads a couple factory tours, hosts. There it is. Thank you, Michael. Factory tours and Q&A sessions. And then we go through the actual material flow roadmap in detail. So it's life-changing experience, really is. Not just the course itself, but just being inside one of the best factories in North America. In fact, it was Factory of the Year in, I think, 2012, North American Factory of the Year. So it's a great and kind of unique opportunity. They only let us do this 4 times a year. So we're grateful. And so there are only 2 material classes a year. The other 2 are the line design classes. So check it out and come join us. There's still time. There's still seats available. Okay, so let's move on and go through the steps from our agenda. So setting up a custom LLM, fine-tuning the model with your own data, and then you give your teams access to that LLM that knows your stuff. It used to be, I say used to be, not that long ago, a year or more ago, it used to be a little more complex to train LLMs. But these days, I think Gemini, which is the Google LLM, has a huge context window, meaning, huge amount of memory that it's able to access during a single session. So I think it's a little easier today if you have a library of content to share that with your LLM. But basically on any of these topics, you can just go to YouTube and just type in, tell me how to create a custom LLM, and you're going to get like a couple hundred videos that'll show you how to do it. But as I mentioned earlier, this is something we've done. We call it Leonardo's Brain. And we use that basically as our chatbot when we're using an LLM, and it has our background information. And so we're getting better results when we're talking about these issues by using it. And then when you're doing things like vibe coding or lean design issues, Kaizen projects, et cetera, you're using that brain that you've customized. Okay, so what kind of data can you use? Well, there's really, the opportunities for a lot of different formats. So it tends to like text best. So PDF, Microsoft Office files, including PowerPoints in many cases, or just simply transcriptions of talks and webinars, or if you have standard operating procedures in text format, or if you have user guides or manuals, or we use our books. The books that we've written are the part of the input for that. So lots of flexibility in terms of where this is coming from. So if you go ahead and do this, then you're going to get better customized or tailored solutions for your business questions or queries. Data privacy may be a concern for companies. In other words, the question is, hey, if I'm sharing all this information, are they using it to train the LLM? If that is a concern, you can run LLMs locally, not connected to the internet. So that is an option. In fact, I have an LLM that I just downloaded that I can run on my PC. Now, it's not what I'd call super fast, and I don't use it all that often, but that is possible if there are concerns about data privacy. Enhanced performance and efficiency when you're asking it queries, yes, because it has the right background already. Avoid vendor lock-in means if you have your own LLM, then you reduce, or your own library that you're training the LLM in, then you avoid the situation where you're committed to using OpenAI, for example, or you're committed to using Claude because you've built this whole infrastructure inside of ChatGPT, and to change it would be really painful. So you can reduce that risk, because these LLMs, 1 week one of them is the best, and the next week another one's outperforming it. So you want that flexibility, I think, to change models if necessary. And of course, this is kind of like apple pie and motherhood, but if you do this, then you're going to have a competitive advantage, because you're going to be able to innovate faster, you're going to get better results. So it makes a lot of sense. I'll just mention in passing, there's a Google product, it's free, called Notebook LM. And I'm using Notebook LM to extract information from our YouTube videos, because you can give it access to a link if you have a YouTube video. I think it doesn't even have to be yours, right? It could be an external one if you're allowed to do that. And it'll it'll summarize that YouTube video into text. So what I'm using Notebook LM for is to summarize a whole YouTube video and then use that as input into Leonardo's brain. It also does this amazing thing of converting content input into a podcast. It's really weird. It takes a couple minutes, but you end up with a file of people having this conversation that's very realistic. It's kind of scary. Okay, next thing we want to do in terms of this automating, the road to automation, is we need to make sure we know what we want. So think of it as building your dream home. You don't want to hire a contractor and have them show up and say, okay, boys and girls, just start cutting wood and start nailing things together, and we'll kind of take it from there, and we'll make changes as we need. My wife happens to be an architect, and so she's very sensitive to this particular reality that if you don't really have detailed specifications, drawings, then what you end up with is change orders from a contractor, or in lean manufacturing lingo, it's rework. And so we don't want that. So what we want to do is really document, design essentially our material flow system based on how we want it to work and based on best practices. So if you attend the mixed model material flow workshop, like at Toyota, one of the things you're going to get there is the roadmap. So we have a material flow roadmap that documents, essentially gives you a starting point for the design of how it should work based on best practices, based on how Toyota does it very successfully, etc. And so we've documented that, and you'll have access to that. And if you don't have something that's as complete as you want, you could, of course, use, it seems circular, but you can use a large language model to help you design it as well. But the point is, you want to think through the various elements of your material delivery system and spend a lot of time on that. I think Japanese companies, for example, are kind of famous for taking a long time to actually take action. But when they take action, then they can get things done very quickly. And the reason for that is this initial part is the planning part. Here in the US, we maybe have a slight tendency to want to ready, shoot, aim. So what we're recommending here is don't do that. I just noticed this picture. The guy's kind of like absorbed by the table, isn't he? He's standing in the table, which is kind of strange. So we want to have, in other words, we want to have a really well thought through plan. And the more detailed, the better, so that when it comes to execution, then the automation piece of it can go very quickly, right? And very, very seamlessly. And if you don't, then you could find yourself in a lot of rework loops. Okay, now in terms of planning, one of the tools that's common in the world of Lean is a value stream map. And I'm suggesting to you, this may not be the format we want to use for a couple of reasons. One is it doesn't seem to work that well for materials because it's too high level, right? You've got this box over here on the left that says supplier. Well, what does that mean? I have 100 suppliers. I have 1,000 suppliers, right? So there's not enough detail, not enough resolution here to really do much with that. So I guess it's kind of nice to know we have a supplier, but so what, right? We knew that before. So too high level. We really need to drill down, to a much lower level. And readability by AI. So if we want to share this information with AI, I've tried this, giving AI an image of a value stream map, and it can kind of sort of do a good job, but really it's not sufficient. It's not what we need. So AI prefers other formats, more like matrix formats or text formats for this kind of information. And then the third point I want to make is that the complexity of the supply chain is such that it makes summarizing it on a value stream map like this difficult, to accomplish. So while this is, I think, more for workflow, makes a lot more sense, and we do use it ourselves for the material flow, it's not going to be quite as valuable. Now, in terms of the course that we teach on mixed model material management at Toyota, we also have an online version of it. We're going through each of the elements and documenting what needs to happen at each step in terms of implementing a mixed model material management system. How many steps are there in our roadmap? There are 120. So there are quite a few. And we've organized this into 9 major phases. So this, as I mentioned earlier, this is available to you. If it's something you want to pursue, it kind of gives you what needs to happen and in what order, what you do first, what you do second, and what needs to happen within each of these steps. So what I did was I took our roadmap and I asked ChatGPT to look at each step, each individual step, and give me some analysis and give me basically an assessment of what are the opportunities for automation. So what I wanted to know is, for this particular step, out of the 120 steps, right? For this step, is this something that a human being really should do? Is this a person type of task? Or is it maybe a hybrid kind of task where a human could use some tools, like an app or some kind of analysis tool, some kind of simple automation program software to help them accomplish this task? Or is this something that AI could just do completely independently without any humans or any code, right? We just give AI the instructions and it can go accomplish this task, by itself, kind of like with an agent. So it's an agency. So I asked it to do that, and it came back with an 850-page report based on the entire roadmap. I'll have to confess, I haven't read the whole thing. That's like War and Peace, right? So these large language models are good at generating text. But I then took the 850 pages and I said, okay, boil it down for me. And it was able to boil it down to 120 pages of summary data. So many, many good ideas, some which I'd already thought of, some which I had not thought of, right? So it's pretty creative. So again, as I mentioned before, I asked it to classify these different opportunities for improvement, and note down here, the pure AI tasks with no human involvement was 0. Now, maybe that's going to change in the future, but it didn't recommend in any case that just purely leave it to me, humans get out of the way. Most of the recommendations were a hybrid kind of recommendation, where the automation would be an app of some kind that you could do to really speed things up. but humans were continuing to be involved. Okay, so you got a 120-page report with a lot of things, a lot of tasks that could be worked on to advance this project forward of automating our material flow system. But you're going to have to apply some, some intelligence to this list and some priorities, because it's just going to be too long, I guarantee you. In case you doubt, you probably don't doubt me at all, right? But I remember my partner Gerard and I did a value stream mapping project with a local hospital here in Colorado. And I took the emergency department and he took the operating, the surgical department. And so we both went away, we did our value streams map, we did brainstorming of improvements, et cetera. And between the two of us, this is a 2-day activity. Between the two of us, we came up with 125 projects, 125 projects. So, and that was just those two departments. So you can imagine how this can really get out of hand. So what I'm suggesting here is you would need to create a decision matrix where you list the opportunities, a little bit like what do they call it? Failure mode and effect analysis kind of approach, where you list all the different opportunities and then you try to quantify them on a number of different aspects. For example, how easy is it to do this improvement? What's the potential benefit? Et cetera, and rank them, say, on a score of 1 to 10, and that'll give you an overall priority score. Yeah, just like a failure mode and effect analysis project, and you sort it, and then you work on the highest priority projects first. Okay, I think you probably got that. Okay, so what are some of the highest priority projects? Typically, they're going to rise to the top. If you don't have a plan for every part, then I think it's easy for me to recommend that that's what you're going to want to do. Right? Set up a plan for every part, and a discussion will need to be had in terms of how do we what's the repository for that? Is it Excel? Is it some kind of database we set up, like a data warehouse? How do we communicate with our legacy systems? So it can be a reasonably challenging project unto itself, but that's really the foundation, I would say, for a lot of the other things we're going to need to do, like designing a Kanban system, designing a kitting process, doing containerization, automation, et cetera, is having a good plan for every part. But here are the other things. We've already gone over this, right? Different things that need to be worked on. Okay. So once we get into a particular topic that we're going to work on, again, you can go back to AI and ask for Kaizen burst ideas. So here's just an example of one that I did. So we have a implementation task 3.4. That's from our material flow roadmap. And what it says here, the objective is to define and document a comprehensive list of standard storage bins to be used within the inventory management system, standardizing the types and colors of bins to store various parts, and assigning each bin color combination a unique bin code. These bin codes will then be linked to each part number during the setup of the physical Kanban system, facilitating efficient material handling and retrieval. So that's our goal. And then we just fed that to AI, and it came back with, here's some of the key activities that need to take place. Here's some of the automation options that you can apply. So what it said was a manual option. It's customizable or tailored, but very time consuming and is prone to errors. So not recommended. What it is recommending here is code, Python or VBA code to automate the data extraction, categorization, and system integration for efficiency. And then AI using machine learning for advanced classification, for automating the documentation of your system, and for feedback analysis, et cetera. So you can keep asking questions and getting it to drill down if some of these things aren't clear. Ask it to, provide a little more information. Tell me more about this recommended step. And I don't know how far deep you can go. You can go pretty darn deep in terms of, here's an example, drilling down on the Kaizen burst ideas for this particular topic that I just shared with you. It's giving you all kinds of things that you can explore. Now, here's where things have changed in the last I'm going to say 6 months, although they existed before that. One of the things is the ability to generate apps or software code to do some of these things. So that's a pretty basic automation step that, we've been doing for some decades now. But in the past, to create an app to do some function in your company was not so easy, right? I remember, because I worked I worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies for quite a few years, that any kind of change that involved software was going to be, $60,000 and 6 months. That's like sort of the standard response. And they would typically require, a lot of time, developing the specs, and then oftentimes a team of people would be required to develop this and test it, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, you never did ask for it. So there are companies even today that are largely reliant, or to a great extent, are reliant on Excel. Now, it's not that they want to use Excel. It's not that they love Excel as the ideal platform for doing some of this work, but Excel is under their control, and it's free basically, and you can develop things much more quickly. That's the rationale. So what's happening? What's changed here? Well, what's changed is that now AI can write code, and it's getting better and better and better at writing code. And so currently, as we speak, almost every major, I believe they're calling it frontier models, their leading models have their own coding platforms. If they don't, then they're developing it. But one of them is called Claude Code. So Claude is one of the frontier models. I'm sure you've heard of it. And they have recently introduced, meaning in the last few weeks or a month or so, not very long, something they call Claude Code. So this is a platform that you can use to write code, basically. The other type of product that is becoming widely used, again, they've been around for a while, but it's becoming more and more powerful, is a coding platform that allows you to connect to these large language models and write code and see the code and execute the code. So it's a combination of a chatbot where you're chatting with the large language model with AI, and then it's coding, and you can see the code and you can test the code, and you can see your coding folders, with all the different files in there, et cetera. So one of the best known platforms is called Cursor, but there are a bunch of other ones. The one I'm currently playing around with using is called Windsurf, and Windsurf was purchased recently, or they're negotiating the purchase, I'm not sure which, with OpenAI for $3 billion. So Windsurf, again, is very much like Cursor. It's one of these platforms. I know that Gemini, Google has their own kind of platform, et cetera. So what's been developed is this concept called vibe coding. So vibe coding, someone came up with this term and it kind of caught on, means you don't actually, as a subject matter expert or user, you're not actually writing code. You are conducting a conversation with AI, explaining what it is you want to accomplish, and then AI will write the code, and then you will have a chance to test it. And if you like it, you keep it. If you don't, then you continue the conversation. This didn't work. Can you change that? I didn't like this color. This functionality is not working, etc. So you're having this vibe experience with AI, but AI is actually the programmer. Now, how well does this work? Well, the more specific you can be, the more detailed a plan you have of what you want to do, the better it works. If you're not a subject matter expert, you don't really know what you're doing, you're just finger painting, then you can really go down rabbit holes of code. But if you actually have a vision and you know what you want to do, then it can be extremely effective. And the leading platform right now that I have heard about or read about is Claude Code, but OpenAI it writes good code. Gemini for a while. Gemini was supposed to be the leader. So all of this is very dynamic. You know, who's the best coder goes from changes from week to week almost. But what OpenAI, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, has said is currently internally at OpenAI, their AI coders are within the top, I think he said top 150 best coders in the world. Now, I don't know if they're sharing those coders with us, but internally they're in the top 150. But he said over the next year or two, his expectation is the AI coders will be the best, number one, better than any human at writing code. So that remains to be seen, but that's kind of where we're going, right? So that's one thing. So as we go through these automation discussions, pick an area you want to improve, and now no longer do you have to raise $1 million and have a team, programmers in a back room somewhere developing it. You can pretty much develop it in a small team or by yourself, and have this conversation and have it create these functional apps that you can use for automation. And they've even talked about in the world of AI, they've talked about how one of these days there's going to be a company created with $1 billion valuation that was created by one person. One person who created agents and wrote any systems that are required and developed products, by herself or himself and AI. So that remains to be seen as well, right? But that's intriguing. The other thing, so other than coding, that's changed is agents. So I mentioned agents earlier. So agent essentially replaces code. So if you're having AI write code, you're ending up with a computer program, right, that does something. And it just was a lot more efficient to do it that way with AI than having a human programmer. But with agents, it's actually somewhat different. With an agent, there is no program. You have AI and English language instructions, or any language you want, instructions on what you want it to accomplish. And then it goes and does it more or less autonomously and comes back with the work done, but without having to write a program per se. So that can be incredibly powerful as well. So you can imagine companies today are developing agents for marketing, for product development, for accounting, for customer service, you name it, for all the administrative functions. You could actually have agents doing these things, but again, not based on writing a software program, but based on instructions that you give the AI agents. So supposedly 2025, this year was the year of the agents. Seems to be happening. I haven't really spent as much time as I would like, trying to develop agents, et cetera. I've been more on the, the developing software code side in terms of my experimentation. But again, this is going crazy in terms of speed of development. This particular image you see here is from a YouTube video that was released this morning. So, my go-to platform for learning about this stuff is YouTube, pretty much. I go to YouTube, and there's actually what I consider high quality, content, people, sharing how to do things. And it's constantly being updated every day, say easily every day. And if you subscribe to these AI newsletters as well as the YouTube channels, every week I get a summary from a couple different sources, and every week it's just incredible. So it's exciting times. So I wanted to show you, let's see, we've got a couple more minutes. I want to show you quickly. I went to Claude, and I asked Claude to develop a material flow app for me. And I said, don't add any functionality, but I wanted to address these aspects. In fact, I didn't even say that. I said, here's our book on material flow. We wrote a book on material flow. I want you to look at this book and then give me the main functionality that a material flow system would need from a mixed model manufacturing point of view. But create vaporware. Don't give me something that actually works, right? Just give me something that has the pages. So I wanted to share with you because I think this is pretty cool. Let's see if I can find it here. Share. So here it is. I'll go back. It even gave it a name. So FlowSync Pro. And I didn't come up with that. And it gave me these tabs here on the side: dashboard, PFEP manager, smart Kanban, delivery routes, container sizing, kitting analysis, KPI dashboard, supplier portal, and predictive analysis. So actually these tabs work. It's going to click and take me to a page. So here's PFEP with some sample data. So you got part numbers, descriptions, etc. Is this an active part? What's the inventory status on this part, etc. So you can have all kinds of status flags here in the PFEP. You can import data from your legacy system, bring it in, and maybe even automate this so it's just done automatically. So that's PFEP. Smart Kanban has, I'm not even sure what this is, but a Kanban heat map, and it'll do the Kanban calculations in terms of how many bins, quantities for each part number, again, based on the PFEP information. Delivery routes, again, nothing's functional here, but interactive route map. So a route or a map of your factory floor where you can actually design and maintain efficient delivery routes for all the items that need to be delivered. Container sizing, so container analysis based on parameters that, again, exist in the plan for every part. Kitting, organizing parts into kits and monitoring the management of that. KPI dashboards, so overall equipment effectiveness, perfect order rate, material velocity or turnover, cost per unit, etc. There's a supplier portal where you can do some work, presumably with individual companies to get them on a pull relationship. And then we have finally predictive analysis. So we're using AI to look at all the data that we have related to materials. And in this particular example, we have a critical alert for maybe some shortages. And it's showing up here too, 3 parts at risk. Then we have opportunities for Kaizen or optimization. Analysis shows 23 parts with excess safety stock. And then pattern detected is doing like machine learning and looking at delivery routes, et cetera, and recommending some improvements. So all of this, I think, is pretty cool. Let me go back. Again, there's no functionality here, but with vibe coding, you could pick one of these tabs and just start working on it, right, and figure out how this could happen. And have it write the code to actually add the functionality. You kind of have to know what you're doing, however. So let's see, let me go back. And okay, so that was just an example. And by the way, that demo, that vaporware demo, took Claude, I estimate, about maybe 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Mostly it was just time scrolling on the screen. You probably could have done faster than that, but it was pretty much instantaneous. Okay, so we're getting near the end. Let me summarize what we went through in this webinar. So I'm recommending build a brain, document what you want, right? Using mixed model manufacturing best practices, which you can learn in our class. Analyze the flow and do some brainstorming with AI. Validate or vet your list of improvement ideas or changes you want to make, because you can't do it all at once. So come up with a way of organizing all of that, and then automate in 2 basic ways. Use AI to write code and test code, etc., and start creating agents. And this is something, again, you don't have to rely on your IT department necessarily. I don't know what rules you may have. They get sensitive about this, but basically progress can be made at least 10x faster than doing it the traditional way, right? Of having humans writing code and teams and stuff. At least 10x, maybe faster than 10x. you could get this automation done. So it's quite impressive. Okay, last comment. Does this sound like AI is going to take your job? Well, what I see is it's adding a bunch of more work. It's adding additional work to maybe what we already have. It's probably going to be more fun, more satisfying kind of work, but I don't see any work going away particularly. So this picture is kind of like how things work today, and we want to really clean up the in and out baskets. So I really, at least in this domain, I don't really see too much risk. We already looked at this, but again, reminder, August 12th to the 14th, here's the link, Lean Design Studio, Mixed Model Material Flow. Check it out and join us if you can. And we also have a way of getting familiar with Mixed Model Material Flow without going to Toyota, a lot more affordable as well, and that is Lean Design Studio. So Lean Design Studio is our platform for everything related to mixed model manufacturing, and we have a certificate track on mixed model material management. So you earn like a little diploma, but you have to go through a handful of courses, pass a final exam, etc. So if this is of interest to you, just go to just type in leandesignstudio.com. It'll take you to the information page, and you can see what it's all about and what's involved.